I think that's something I'm really proud of with HC, is that we don't have a kind of weird relationship with the salon industry as a whole. We welcome everyone to HC. You've got session stylists, you've got hairdressers that have always been freelance. And then you've got those whose salons closed, right? They were stylists in really prestigious brands. So it's a really mixed bag.
I mean, as a salon owner, I can see how much more I pay for foil or mesh or colour or peroxide or bleach or water, heat, everything.
Like Wi-Fi, like everything.
There's nothing that's got cheaper. Everything has doubled up, if not more.
We used to be quite insular in what we were talking about. So it was very hairdresser to hairdresser. Yeah. And I found that quite fatiguing, because I was just a bit I feel like we're just going around in a bit of a circle here, guys. We're just talking to each other, but nothing's changing. And I think what's different, and social media has really helped with this, is that now we're talking out. And it's not just fellow hairdressers who are listening to what you're saying. It's actually your consumer.
Hi there, I'm Anthony Laban, and you're watching the Noble Barber podcast. We're here to cut through the crap of the industry and give the answers, or at least try and find the answers to the problems that all of us as business owners struggle with every day. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hi there. Welcome to another episode of The Noble Barber. I'm here today with Lacey Hunter-Felton of the Hunter Collective. Welcome.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very good. Thank you very much for coming in. I've got lots of stuff that I want to talk to you about, but could we do a little quick précis for anyone who doesn't know who you are about how you've ended up at the Hunter Collective, or with the Hunter Collective, or whatever the phrasing is?
What is Hunter Collective?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, fine. So I'm Lacey, the co-founder of Hunter Collective. We started Hunter Collective back in 2017, and we are the leading co-working space in the UK. I was behind the chair. I was a hairdresser in the West End 20 years. And I loved it. I loved being a hairdresser. But I couldn't see a future for how I was going to move forward into, retaining my hairdressing skills and being with my clients, and maybe having a bit of diversity into what I wanted to do, whether that was with a family or going into another avenue. And the options that were classically open, which were go open a salon or go into session work or something like that, just didn't really appeal to me. And I was with my husband actually at the time in his new office, and he was working in this really cool building called WeWork at the time, and and it was co-working, and I was like, "What's co-working?" And they were like, "Well, all these businesses are together, and they all share the facilities, and they all work together." And I was like, "That doesn't work." I've worked in really prestigious, beautiful salons, had the most amazing time, but you had your column, you had your chair, and you were in competition with everybody in that space, right? You had your targets, whatever. I was like, there's no way that this can work, because I'd always been in quite a competitive environment since I was 16 when I started. And they were like, no, this is what happens here. So I spent some time there, and I got to know them. I got to know the people working within them. I got to know the culture. And very quickly, I realized that co-working and this kind of portfolio lifestyle and international lifestyle was achievable if you had a collaborative, open, transparent, dynamic way of working, which I found was co-working. And so I sat down and I built the plan, and we opened Hunter Collective. What it is.
Well done.
That was a bit of a long story, wasn't it?
No, right. Oh, that was so not. We've had some really long bun-ups for it. Don't worry, that was fantastic. That was the word that we had we've only really spoken once on a phone call prior to today.
Yeah.
And the one word that we both kind of bounced enthusiastically with each other is transparent.
100%.
And that's the bit that's caught me about the Hunter Collective, I think, from the very off. It's not anywhere I've ever worked. I've spoken to Dan Gregory, was one of our guests, and he spoke about his time in the building. But it was a really honest, open, transparent way of working. It was kind of like joining a gym. You just clicked, and this is what it cost. Or joining something. It was just, this is how much it's going to cost you. This is how it works. This is our practice, which doesn't happen a lot. It's certainly in our industry, whether it's hairdressing or barbering or even beauty, it all seems to get a little bit. We don't really talk about that. I've just run a couple of ads for some new barbers for the store, and I was the only one that put the salary on.
Okay.
And you just kind of go, wow, what are we ashamed of? Why are we hiding? We're either hiding because we're ashamed, or we're hiding because we're not being honest. I don't get it. Whereas I think with yours, your structure is clear. We've got freelancers, we've got self-employed, we've got chair rentals. I don't see too many booth rentals. That I guess is more stateside.
They're coming. They're here.
They are here, are they?
Yeah.
I haven't encountered that and how they set up. And yours seems like was definitely the first, and there are a few other co-working spaces arrived. But yours definitely seems really upfront, very clear.
Thank you. We just, we set out, we have a monthly membership, and then we charge our members. So everyone that signs up to the space becomes a member of Hunter Collective, and we charge them by the hour. I mean, really, when you get to know us and you see the inner workings of it, we're actually charging people by 15-minute increments because everything we do is digital, it's cash-free, it's online. Like, everything is documented because we just want to be as transparent as possible. So when your client is in the chair, that's when we charge you to be there. And for me, as a working parent, that was really important because I just felt like when people were talking to me as I was researching Hunter Collective and how I wanted it to really impact the members in the community that we were building it for, the stuff that I was finding when I was researching it was just so grey and murky. And it was all about, if you do a day rate, and I was like, what's a day? Your day might be different to my day. And, what's a revenue split? I'm like, well, where's the tax? Like, how does that work? Where's the product cost? All these different things. And there wasn't any information, and no one wanted to really have a conversation about it. It was all very top level, bullet point information. And for me, every time I came up with that kind of that confrontational conversation of not much information, I just documented it. I wrote it down. I was just like, for this particular thing, we're going to make sure what we're doing is really clear because there's no hidden cost. There's no hidden framework. It is purely we charge you for the time that you're in the chair. And I think that's fair. So the other thing we're really proud of that we don't do is mates rates because, every member gets treated and charged the same. And that was really important to me because that is transparency. So being digital and being able to document everything down to that 15-minute increment, it's about trust. And when you're working with a community, we trust them to share and use our spaces fairly, and they trust us to obviously deliver those spaces and enjoy those spaces and make them available to them. But they also trust us that we're not, charging them for something that they're not using.
Yeah. And so you're not, just to kind of take this as kind of to idiot-proof this, you're not interested in what they're making. They're paying you for that space that they're using. What they charge, what they do is nothing to do with you. They get a bill for using your building. The transactions as such don't go through you.
No, they don't. And I think that was really important because even from a tax perspective and a banking perspective, you become a bank essentially. So we had to be really, really clear on that. So every member has their own PDQ or app or, times have changed since PDQ, but that's how it started. But all of that flows through the members. And, I think it's really important that when you're talking about a freelancer or a small business owner, the space is available. They can charge for the services, in particular hair or beauty services that they want to charge for. Obviously, as a community, we have responsibility in the sense that everybody has to have insurance, and we do an induction process.
But that's part of their membership package that they have to have.
You have to be a professional, insured, practicing, experienced, stylist or barber or whatever. And there is an induction process where we identify all of those points so that when someone comes into Hunter Collective, that we're setting them up to be, as successful or as, as however they want to use the space. But there's a real community aspect to Hunter Collective, which you can't You don't buy that. You don't charge for that.
I mean, it certainly sees it from your, looking at your social media and what's going on out there.
It's the members that make it.
It definitely feels like there's still a buzz of a kind of, of a store life going on.
100%. And it's every individual member that make Hunter Collective what it is. Like there's only, you put your DNA, you put your, your blueprint into place and you love and you nurture it. Of course, it's your business. And I still love Hunter Collective as much as I did in 2017 when I started it. But the members are what make Hunter Collective. In
the same way as a lot of shops, it's it's the clients that
100%. And the clients that come through the door, I'm in admiration of all of our members because they have taken the leap into, building HC with me, and that's amazing.
Yeah. No, incredible. Well, that's fine. I guess to relate it back to a wider audience, you're running your business, the people within it are running theirs, and I speak to a lot of people who are doing the same, but doesn't actually stand up to the scrutiny of talk to me about your business.
Okay. Because
there's so much grey space. And, I run my company, I guess, in a more traditional salon life. I have buildings, I pay the rent and, and I know what my overheads are.
Yeah.
And I know what I need to make before I get a shiny penny.
Yeah.
And that shiny penny comes very last, and that's it. But at least I'm clear. If my landlord suddenly turned around and went, "Oh, actually, you still owe me another £160 for last month's business tax that I'd forgot to mention." Mm-hmm. Hang on a second, that's my £160.
Yeah.
Well, I hear a lot from guys who are probably more, let's just use a general term as self-employed.
Okay.
But working in stores that don't have a proper clear bit of paper that shows exactly what their terms and conditions are, what they're actually buying, how much they get, what they're getting. I speak to a lot of barbers who have gone along. It's like, you didn't stay very long? Oh no, well, they told me that on the chair rental I'd be earning £600 a week. In reality, I was making 200. I'm like, how is that happening? It's, unless you're operating your business from a dark corner, and these young barbers are coming in to try and get a gig, and they're getting caught out because there's another 10% for towels, or you pay 5% for cleaning and that kind of stuff.
I think just putting it out there, it's Hunter Collective, we're learning every day, right? We take on the feedback, we navigate certain things, you're always learning as a business, you're always evolving. So I'm never going to be we're the best at what we do.
Sure.
We are always trying to get better. But there are certain things and certain conversations, where you're just a bit you can't, if you're self-employed, you can't really be promised anything. And I think that's where that clarity needs to come to.
Well, I think I spoke to, I checked with the revenue
of
what their description or their understanding of what a self-employed person is.
Okay.
And the revenue, the lovely HMRC, their response is must have the ability to lose money.
Oh, wow.
So that's the revenue's criteria.
Okay.
So if you're paying X for your space and you earn Y, and Y is less than X, so it's cost you 60 quid to work that day, you're self-employed.
Okay.
And that's what the HMRC state is, the ability to lose money.
Oh my God.
Now, if you're on 50-50, I'm not sure how you lose money. You know what I mean? That commission bit.
Yeah.
But you must have more. I don't have these. You must have had this experience and these conversations.
Yeah, and I think that's where that induction process into Hunter Collective and other spaces, is really, really important. And that's where that transparency comes from. Is because you're not a team. And a lot of people use that word of join our team. I'm you're not, and you can't be. But I know that the members at Hunter Collective feel like they're really connected through their community, and I love that about us because we have such a great buzz about the space. But when you actually look at the nuts and bolts of it, everybody is their own entity and identity, and that is so crucial that everybody understands that. And I think at the beginning of HC, we went through a journey of we still do, we still want to support our members with building their businesses, with information and peer-to-peer learning and sharing and that kind of stuff. But at the beginning, like we kind of road tested, like, you know, if we built websites or logos or, you know, really tried to build certain dynamics into other people's businesses. But that's what it was. It was another person's business. And I think we learned and failed a lot through that, which is really great, that kind of test and learn mindset. But also what was really important, it was, you know, something that my accountant said to me, it was just like, you know, you're offering services to your demographic. You cannot be responsible for, you know, as much as you're willing that person's success and you want them to be there, you cannot be responsible for that person's income. Like, and they know how much they have to pay you for the use of your services and your facilities, but the actual business that they're operating is theirs. And I think, you know, when I see that 50-50 split, and, you know, for many, many businesses generationally, like that has just been a very common conversation. Like it's a 50-50. I mean, it still very much happens now when people sometimes have to say, it's mostly barbers come in and they say, you know, oh, this is what I've seen, you know, it's this membership and it's this price, but actually, like, do you want to do like a 50-50 split with me? And I'm like, no. But barbers are very welcome at HC. And, you know, it's because it's all a bit of a negotiation. And I'm just like, well, it's not. And you're either confident in delivering your business or you're not ready to be freelance yet. And if you're not ready, then go build your skills until, and that's not just your barbering skills or hairdressing skills, that is your business skills, your commercial skills, your marketing skills. To be ready to take that leap into your own business, because that's what you're doing. Like you are becoming a business owner. And I think that's something that in that induction period through HC, we, you know, over coffee, like you really do have to, like, you have that conversation. And it's, you know, sometimes it can be a bit brutal because you're just like, are you ready? Do you want to do this? Because you are taking on all of your own liability. And
you provide no clients, you don't provide any of that. They turn up and you provide the ability for them to hairdress. Yeah,
we facilitate that. Which I think is like that freedom, you know, like it's that freedom to build your own business on your terms. And I love the diverse way that our members use our spaces. And I'm learning all the time about, you know, how the co-working and freelance sector is evolving at speed. Oh my gosh, there's so many different business models coming to the market. We're seeing them all the time. We're really excited. It's just another thing to learn from. Competition is so interesting to me because you're seeing things coming in and you're just like, that's smart. That's cool. That's interesting. Like, didn't think about that. Or that's the next kind of level of this or whatever. And I know it probably sounds a bit weird, but I like it. Like, I'm into it. So I think when I see that evolution, it excites me. And if it's going to push our community and the freelance sector forward, then I'm like, yeah, great, we're all for it.
Where do your freelancers come from, though? What's their back? Where were they working before? How did they?
So how
do you find that comes from?
So we've been really fortunate at HT that our network is like word of mouth recommended. So mostly they're coming in because, you know, new members are joining the space because a current member or an old member has said, this is a great space if you're looking to be in that area. But our membership is international. So London is we're based in London. We've got 2 locations in London. So, you know, we've got stylists coming from all over the world that wanted to be in London. And what's so great about HC is that they can literally come in for 3 or 4 days a month, fly out to, you know, Lisbon or Paris or wherever they live and use a space. Or like, you know, Dan was coming down from Liverpool, you know, for a few days every week. So, you know, Birmingham, all over the country. And it's amazing. It's not a London-centric brand in that way. But it's a real mixed bag. Some of them were salon owners that shut their salons down and have come to us. I think that's something I'm really proud of with HC is that we don't have a kind of weird relationship with the salon industry as a whole. We welcome everyone to HC. So you've got ex-salon owners, you've got session stylists, you've got hairdressers that have always been freelance. The freelance market has always been there. And then you've got those whose salons closed, right? They were stylists in really prestigious brands and, you know, all over London. And a lot of those salons are closed over the last few years since COVID. And they needed a new home. They needed a place to be. So it's a really mixed bag, really mixed bag.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had my business for 20 years, my original business, which I shut down. And it was the hardest bit was kind of punting myself out, wandering from shop to shop to kind of go, listen, I'm just looking for somewhere to work from. And that was when I was really surprised. It was a guy, Paul, who became a very good friend, who just kind of went, look, go and work in the corner and we'll sort it out. And he was very, very supportive and helpful. But genuinely, everyone I spoke to, I'd be 20 seconds into the conversation, and I'm like, there's none of this is in it for me. You're genuinely trying to scam me. I'm saying I'm going to come and work in your quiet shop. Yeah. I'm going to be busy, and this is what I'll pay you. Yeah. And all you were thinking about is how can I nick his clients?
Oh, wow.
And you just kind of go, oh, guys, come on.
I think that's where that kind of collaboration above competition mindset of HC has always kind of come through is the members are not trying to nick each other's clients.
Yeah,
and I think
that's really nice. I like that.
Yeah, and I didn't realise how different that was going to be. It felt so natural to be that way. But yeah, again, it's just, I think the industry, and when I say the industry, I do include barbering in that way. I like the way it's opening up. I like the way it's changing. I like the way that the conversations we're having are about not only the person that is liable for the rent or the lease or owns the building, but it's also for the people and the culture within it. Yeah. And I think that's so integral. And I think you'll see a lot of traditional salon owners who are embracing that work-life balance conversation and putting the needs of their, team first. And I think, that's where there's been this kind of deadheading, I guess, of maybe brands who still weren't, just couldn't accept that
very rigid way of working.
Cultures had to change. And, but like I said, with HC, we're learning new things all the time. I'm sure if you look at HC in 6 or 12 months' time, it will be evolved again. We haven't stopped changing.
But you're cash-free, fully tech, everything booking. So you provide a reception?
Interesting
that takes
one.
Bookings for them, or do they have their own book? They turn up and do their own thing.
So the thing with HC, I guess, was we deliver. So I'm from a high-end salon background, right? So everything's about customer service. So I was just when you walk in, it's got to be this kind of experience.
Yeah.
But we looked at reception and we were just well, what is reception? What's a receptionist? How does that even function when you've got everybody who's running their own business?
Yeah.
So we really pulled it all apart, and we've now got what we think is really great, which is a front of house team. So they facilitate the entire floor and they keep the running from the experience of the members who arrive and their clients through to them, when they leave. And because the members have their own access to our digital booking system, they manage their own columns, opening times, finish times, pricing, everything, communication with their clients, everything. But we have it all centralized at HC. So so
your front of house knows who's coming
almost
in.
We're kind of like the mothership. So we can kind of see who's coming, when they're arriving, what they're doing, how they're doing it. Yeah. We don't scrutinize it the same way that I think maybe traditional, how I remember being scrutinized with my column, because we don't earn commission or money through what comes in the door. No, that's not our business. That's your business. But we are all about facilitating the flow of the space. And that's really important to me. So how it feels in Hunter Collective and the energy in Hunter Collective and the buzz of Hunter Collective, everyone has to be positively impacted. And that needs someone just, curating it throughout the day. And just someone to take care of everybody. So that's what we have, and our team are amazing.
And they're more like kind of building managers, that they're making sure everyone gets to where they're going. And
we call them our member managers, basically, or our front of house team. So they're there just to make sure that the spaces are clean and beautiful, and that everyone has the refreshments that they want. And it's just a really beautiful element of the service that we have at HC. Because I was I just want to take a little bit of stress out of the everyday. Yeah. And but then when you walk into HC, it could be buzzing and it won't feel stressful. It's just, Yeah, it's
There's
just
an element
nice.
of crazy in the best of stores, surely.
Yeah, and I think, no, but do you know what there is? It's just that I think the craziest thing is where everybody has such different personalities and coming from it in such different ways, that actually that is what you're doing, is you're managing, or you're figuring out the flow of all the different businesses that are using that space simultaneously. And I think that's something that maybe people don't realize when they're looking at self-employed, and they don't realize when looking at co-working, or they're just like, oh, that's easy, right? You have this floor or building and you just rent it out and you're a landlord and you just take the money. And I'm like, dude, like, if you think that's what it is,
You wish.
like, if you genuinely think that's what it is, like, fill your boots and then show me how you did it, and I'll do a bit of that. But it's nothing like that. And it's interesting because that space management is the core of how you differentiate yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think the boom in the kind of freelance is fantastic to see. My only ever concern is the guys that are maybe only think that's the route to market. It's the only way for their business before they've even got a business. Yeah. And I think we're seeing an awful lot of people at the beginnings of their careers leaving because they're just not making any money. They see your world and think that's what they're going to walk straight into. Yeah. But they haven't got the clients they haven't got the volume of clients, or they haven't got the clients that are paying the bill to get there. Yeah. And they're not recognizing that, I would assume that every one of your members had a life before and had a career, but they were building up their clientele and building up their business.
Well, I think what's interesting is, like, we're very aware that, and we talk about this openly with everyone that applies to Hunter Collective or wants to be a part of it, that, it's not for everybody in the sense that there's a certain time in someone's career, and that, that has changed. So, like, at the beginning, none of our members were under the age of, like, 35, something like that. And now it's got a little bit lower, which is great. It's got a little bit older, which is great. It's a little bit more of a mix. But it's not unusual to have a conversation with someone. And it's a privilege. It's humbling to be able to have this conversation with someone. It's not something that I just disregard. But, where you sort of say to that person, likes don't necessarily equal bums on seats. And I'm a little bit old school in that terminology, I know, but we all know what bums on seats mean. Paying your mortgage, right? And, I think there's that kind of instant gratification, and on Instagram there's, on YouTube, like, obviously there's this kind of idea, I think, or perception of what a freelancer could be, or what a hairdresser could be, or what a barber could be. But actually, like, you really, when I hit the floor after I did my apprenticeship, I remember my lead trainer turning around to me and just being like, well done. And I was just a bit like, oh, like, really dismissive. Like, she's just like, the real work starts now, darling. You've got another 10 years of building up your experience until you think I'm going to take you seriously. And I was like, oh,
cheers, love.
Like, thanks. I was like, what?
Excellent.
But I never lost that. I never lost it. And, I've been in education, most of my career, and, it's true. You do need to build up your experience, and that isn't everything. But I do understand, I can sympathize why young professionals are hitting the market earlier. But I think I don't think you'll see the percentage of the success rate being as high.
Yeah, which is a shame.
Yeah. But I think having that open conversation around,
oh God, I mean,
you gotta build your skills, guys.
I just wish we could stop making these empty promises, and just, if we're all being honest, then they've got a reality check, and then we can move forward. And I think building these young people and these young brands is going to be amazing. Yeah. And
that, like, when I look at what's coming through in the industry, like, there's so much talent coming through, and it's really exciting.
Really exciting.
But there's so much hard work. And when you do get to know a couple of these kind of rising stars, like, they are working their nuts off, and it's incredible. But I just wish that maybe it wasn't, that was clearer. Because everyone that I know that's been successful in business is blood, sweat and tears.
Yeah.
and it's
It
hard.
doesn't come across in Instagram though, does it?
No.
In a 12-second video. It's much better that you show yourself with your expensive bag getting on an aeroplane.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know, it's silly, isn't it?
That's much better.
It's silly, but I kind of, like HC has a brand online on Instagram and I don't personally. And it's been really interesting, like making that choice to not be a visible person on Insta. But it's a choice that I'm like really happy with and comfortable with. But, you know, many of our members are not reliant on social media for their business. So they are established
busy
professional who's really busy. And it is refreshing because it's nice having, you know, you've got certain members who are like, you know, cameras are out the whole time, tripods are set up at the station, like it's all go, go, go. We've got a little shoot space, like it's you know, they're in it. And then you've got other members who are just behind the chair with their clients, relationships, 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
I've been, you know, my hairdresser has been cutting my hair for over a decade and I am consistently loyal and couldn't imagine anyone else cutting my hair. And, you know, I don't go to that person because I've seen her work on Instagram. So it's, you know, I think there's a really lovely mix and I think you can still build a business organically if you're very good at what you do.
Well, I guess, everyone keeps saying, you know, there is an element of it's still word of mouth, isn't it? It's still people talking about you, whether it's social media but when it's actually behind a chair and you're actually doing it, there's no filter that will that will help you deliver. It's your skills.
I think it's something else that's really nice is the way that people are charging differently for their time. So, you know, some people are starting to break down the cost of their services and materials. Some people are charging literally by time. So if I work for 45 minutes and then another 45 minutes, so this is the hourly rate. And if your hair takes 3 hours, this is how much it's going to cost. You know, some people work on quoting through consultation. So every appointment is valued at a different quotation. I'm really interested by how all of the members at Hunter Collective and all that, you know, generally across the industry, how people are starting to play and really push. You know, there's lots of conversations around like calculators and how you manage your time and your services and your product and break it all down and share it with your clients. And it's really interesting how that in itself is becoming like a conversation for the consumer. Because I think that's something else that's really evolving in our sector is we used to be like quite insular in what we were talking about. So it's very hairdresser to hairdresser. Yeah. And I found that quite fatiguing because I was just a bit like, I feel like we're just going around in a bit of a circle here, guys. Like we're just talking to each other, but nothing's changing. And I think what's different, and social media has really helped with this, is that now we're talking out. And it's not just fellow hairdressers who are listening to what you're saying. It's actually your consumer. And people are building consumer rapport. And that's how evolution and change is happening, is because if your consumer understands how and why you charge in a certain way, they feel more comfortable for paying for that service. And that has been quite interesting.
That's another dynamic with yours though, isn't it? If you're self-employed or you're running your own business, you should check your prices. Whereas actually I generally see in a barber shop, you can't tell who's doing what because miraculously all the barbers seem to be charging exactly the same price, even though they're all self-employed.
Okay.
And then if the price goes up, presumably that's an agreement amongst all of them that the price is going to go up, and they blame the shop owner, they blame the rent, they blame. Are you just the consistent blame for anyone who puts their prices up?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm happy to take it. I think what's really nice is like what we see on our floors is everyone charges something completely different. So, but what we've found statistically, so I'm not going to like pull anybody out on particular, but statistically what we've seen is that once you join HC, your price will generally go up. And I think that's amazing because you can see that through that peer support and encouragement through your community, people feel like they can really back themselves. And they can also see that others are charging, you know, a price that's maybe higher. Yeah. So then they go, okay, like I feel comfortable, I feel good in myself, I know what I'm doing. And these guys are like going, come on, you can do this. And then, you know, they work their prices up and, you know, it's amazing because their clients pay it. Yeah. And it's so fantastic to see that loyalty coming through. But yeah, pricing is an interesting one. And I think it's something that as an industry, we're tackling it. It's becoming more of a conversation, but people are still petrified of putting up their prices. And I get it. Like it's scary, but it's something that with the rising costs of all the different things around you.
I mean, as a salon owner, I can see how much more I pay for foil or mesh or colour or peroxide or bleach or but
it's like
towels,
electric,
water, heat, everything.
Like Wi-Fi, like everything.
There's nothing that's got cheaper. Everything has doubled up, if not more.
And I think that's been quite a sort of scary conversation for our business with the overheads that we have. Is that we are impacted. Obviously, we swallow the cost of all of that. So, so it's something that you have to kind of look at every 6 months or more, maybe every quarter, and just kind of like look at it and go, all right, because you're literally paying maybe 30% more for something that was 30% less for
definitely.
Like no change. I mean, it's horrendous.
Jumping your prices by 30% is something very few people are going to do.
No,
and you're wearing it out of your profit line.
But I don't know. Like, I think what's really interesting is like when I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and other trades, service providers, were brought up in that meeting, and I was like, you got your plumber earning an absolute bomb. You got your electricians earning an absolute bomb. Whereas, we're not electricians and plumbers, but what they've done is they've broken down the labor cost versus the material cost, and it's on the invoice and it's really clear, and they quote you for what they're about to do, and it's your decision whether you pay it or not. And
when I do think the quote's a really interesting thing, and it being more bespoke, I think we certainly find that there's a different time level even between haircuts. The guy that's not had a haircut in 6 months because he's had the sabbatical and he's been hanging out taking pictures in the forests of the world. And then turns up and he's got to go back to work. And he needs this shoulder length hair cut into something else. And you'll spend 20 minutes kind of discussing and nurturing him to lose his George of the Jungle look and get back to a bit of business. Life. And then you've got to cut it. And then your price list is saying haircut costs this. And that was like 3 haircuts. So I do think I'm really intrigued by the future of kind of more bespoke and more consultation-based pricing.
But I think you've touched on a really delicate point there, which is the client lifestyle has completely changed. So, in some ways we brought it on ourselves with when I look at, I remember when balayage was introduced and I was just like, oh my God, this is the future. I love it. And trained in balayage. I loved it. My clients loved it. And then I was like, where are all my clients? I'm like, well, they don't come in as often because you've just created something that is low maintenance. And I was like, I need 5 times the amount of color clients I used to because I have literally done that to myself. And then that's kind of one avenue of it. And the other avenue is lifestyle. So they're moving out, they're working remotely, they're working internationally, they're more nomadic. Or you've got, where you're working from home now, you don't want to come into town. So, if you are in town, you're there for 1 or 2 days a week. And
you've never seen such a spike in the kind of home electrical goods for people doing their hair at home. I mean, I'm bemused now if I walk past Boots' wall of electrical. And you're like, okay, that would be anyone who would normally come and get their hair done, would come and get the thing done.
Completely blew my mind and caught me completely out was I moved out of London 18 months ago, and I've been in London for 20 odd years. And I moved out 18 months ago, and we were like, my husband's going to go in 2-3 days a week. Cool. I'm going to go in 1-2 days a week. And you're just like, ideally I was going to stay overnight. I was going to do 2 full days in London, stay overnight, which is what my members are doing, right? Members were flying in, staying in hotels for a few days, flying out again. It looked so great. But the cost of hotels in London on a Tuesday night, what? And you're just like, whoa. And your clients are having to manage these scenarios as well. So I think that's the conversation that is happening a lot at HC from member to member and from member to me when we sit down and we catch up is the client impact and how you're having to, really navigate that. It's quite a new thing. Like the routines of clients are changing, the needs of the client is changing, and I think everyone's kind of figuring out how that impacts their business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's very true. You're not still behind the chair? You stopped that now?
I stopped, yeah. In 2019.
Did you gift your clients to somebody else within HC? Or
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I literally sat down and was like, I think you'd be great with this person. I think you'd be great with that person. And, all credit to them. Like most of my clients.
Like someone decided to leave the UK and left me inherited their clientele. And I'm like, job done. Thank you.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Like sometimes like when I go into HC and I see my client there, and I still just said my client. It's not my client anymore. But I'm like, it's my client. And then they literally like, I go over and they're like, ah! And it's so nice because it's a human connection. Genuine.
I think that's the bit through COVID that I struggled with, was just that not being around a team of people. And I think as a freelancer, to be able to still work within a group of people with the buzz of the store, a bit of banter with other people, to be saying good morning to front of house and just have that vibe around you has got to be the value for the customer base. Yeah. And I think that's possibly why so many of the slightly grey self-employed systems work, because people do want to be self-employed. They do want that ownership of their career.
Yeah.
But they still want to be around a team of people. They still want to be all that kind of stuff. And I just think there's an element of rip-off going on.
It's hard to turn down. I think, when you're, and this is only based on the, varied conversations that I've had over the years, right? But the recurring themes are, well, I don't have to organize my product. It's just there. I can take what I want. I don't have to worry about coffee and tea. It's just there. I can take what I want. I don't have to worry about gowns and towels and stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm just like, well, like some of that is built into HC too, like, as your membership charge, and like we take care of certain things and whatever. But, when you sort of sit there and you ask that person, like, so how does this break down? Like genuinely break down? I think there is still, I personally, I can only base on my own personal experiences. I haven't literally had anyone be able to tell me exactly what it is, how they know how much they're getting paid. No. And I think that's the hardest
But thing. I think also for the store owners, I mean, I'm not saying that the store owners are ripping anyone off. They could be ripping themselves off. If you're not doing the sums, you're sitting there going, we do 50-50. Hang on a minute.
50-50 of what?
What's that? What's the 100% to start with? And what comes out of my 50 and what comes out of yours?
Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of changes.
And that's, you could be ripping yourself off. And I think, I'm not saying it's black and white. I'm just saying it's grey, and grey worries me so much.
I'm not good with grey either. No. And I think that's where like you have to ask those questions and know your worth, and just sort of say, actually, if someone else is marginally benefiting more from this financially than I am, obviously in our kind of sector, there's so much more that you get from it. So it might be skills training, it might be exposure to brands, it might be travel, it might be like partnerships with different things. Like that our industry is so diverse in what it offers to the individual. So it's incredible. But unless you know exactly what it is that you are receiving in participation of you sharing your skills, giving your time, I think there's so many ways to make it work. If you're that business owner that has all of this wealth of knowledge to share, and you want to bring people in, I think it can work. Yeah. But I just feel very passionately, as you do, that there just needs to be a breakdown, so that if there's a list of things, almost like a shopping list or a receipt, right, where you're just like, this is what we do, this is what you do, this is what you pay for, this is what I pay for, then if that needs to change in any way after a period of time where you're just like, well, actually, are you bringing in those clients for yourself, or are you bringing them in for the brand? And who retains them? And like, how does that work? And are you being promoted through marketing, and who is paying for that? And are you paying for that, or is it part of your deal? And I think there's loads of things now where maybe the individual is getting a bit more savvy and sort of saying, how does this work?
Yeah.
Because when you've got someone who's got, maybe a massive online profile, you're bringing things to the table that maybe that the owner of that business isn't, or, there's a negotiation that can happen there. It's give and take. But I think knowing what you're giving and knowing what you're receiving for both sides of the conversation is so important. But I think that's where there's quite a quick turnover. And
and I think that's where we started. It's the transparency. We've come all the way back to
the beginning,
the transparency.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. It's not anything that's right or wrong. I just think, the clarity of knowing what you're earning and what you're paying for. And
but I think from the business owner's perspective, who has the responsibility of the lease, I think it's equally as important. Like, I'm not all just for the freelancer because, I sit here and I've got commercial leases that I'm responsible for. And it is terrifying because you're just like, bloody hell. Like, I've got to make sure no matter what you guys are doing, that I'm doing it right. Because
when COVID hit, I was still paying the rent on the 4 buildings.
Yeah.
I was still,
scary.
I was still paying for all the overheads. That didn't go.
No. And you're paying for service charge and you're like, what's that?
I'm kind of like, hang on a minute.
Yeah, no, it was horrendous. But I think it's good for both sides to know where they are.
Yeah. Transparency. That's exactly it. I think if you can't my whole business life has been, if I can't write it all down and understand it on one sheet of paper, it doesn't work.
Okay.
And that's it, because you should be able to get it on one piece of paper.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm going to take that home.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So lovely that you made it in. I do feel we could have chatted on and on and on, and I hope at some point we can get you back.
Sure. Lovely talking to you.
Because I had another list of questions in my head to go through, but I think I'm gonna stash those for the next one. Thank you very much. Hi there. If you've got a story or know someone with a story or have a topic that you think we should cover that we haven't yet, please get in touch. We'd love to speak to you.